Thank you so much for tuning in to yet another episode of the Real Israel Podcast with me, your host, Chaim Mailspin. Join us as we dive into Israel's past, present, and future as we explore the rich history, current events, and visionary perspectives shaping this dynamic region. Welcome to another episode of the Real Israel Podcast with me, your host, Chaim Mailspin. I'm honored to be with Idan. Thank you, Idan Ronen.
How you doing? Yeah.
You are such an activist, a social media activist. You go on interviews in very unwelcoming formats, even with Arabic, BBC, Al Jazeera, Al Arabiya, ones like this. But before we get into that and your advocacy and all that, tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, how many were you born in Israel? Were you born speaking Arabic? I mean,
all right. So I'm Israeli through and through. I mean, I was never born anything other than Israeli. So I will be very honest with you. Never in my wildest dreams, have I ever thought about making hasbara in Arabic.
Right.
It just so happened, but I sure was dreaming about doing hasbara in English. And in fact, that is where I was starting my way off from.
And hasbara being like advocacy for Israel.
Exactly.
Hasbara. Yeah.
The pro-Israel case, to show out Israel's case.
Right.
So I've started like 5 years ago, I think even 6 years ago, in the English-speaking media outlets. That was one of them was a pretty pro-Israel friendly outlet. It's called ILTV.
Yes.
And another one, a very aggressive and hostile one. It's called Russia Today. That's pretty much Putin's
propaganda station. Or
exactly,
something.
The propaganda mouthpiece of Putin. A very anti-Israel. I think maybe second to Al Jazeera only, or third to Al Jazeera and BBC only. And from there on, I just kept on rolling and rolling. And I remember I was saying to myself, it's not enough. I can't wait like once a few months so somebody will call up on me and having me for an interview. So I was thinking about how about actually expanding my knowledge, and I don't know, maybe should I start Arabic?
Okay, wow.
Yeah, and so I was tuning into YouTube. And I was just starting learning Arabic from YouTube.
Right.
No less than Al Jazeera itself.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty absurd, I know. It
Everyone
sounds
learns
interesting.
All the street signs are in Arabic, English, Hebrew in Israel. Most people don't know that. And we learn Arabic in school, Arabic, Hebrew, English, but not so much. You took it to like a real... I
was pretty good in Arabic during my times in high school.
Okay.
But I never done anything with that anymore.
Right.
So I remember the structure, the grammar, not perfectly though. Right. But all the vocabulary mass I was acquiring from YouTube. I was literally, logging into YouTube and start watching Al Jazeera and other media and other videos from the Arab media, and bit by bit, slowly but surely, I was acquiring vocabulary in Arabic. And this day, or this very week, it is my 3rd anniversary since the first show of mine in the Arab media. I remember that was on Jerusalem March Day on May 2022. We are just past that right now, Jerusalem March Day in 2025.
Celebrations, dancing throughout the city and throughout the streets. And so you feel that your voice is one of advocacy for Israel and actually standing up. And how do you handle these very hot environments where you'll have someone that's maybe spouting lies of actually a terrorist group, Hamas, and repeating those lies and just at you in the studio? How do you know how to respond to these things?
Right. So it's a good question. In the end of the day, everybody's coming out of his own style. And I was thinking to myself, because learning Arabic is not necessarily only learning Arabic, is also learning Islamic, learning Middle Eastern. So pretty much my tagline is, I got a few taglines. One of which is, in Rome, behave Roman. In the Middle East, behave Middle Eastern.
Interesting.
And that is approached not necessarily for the media advocacy, but in generally speaking, how to conduct yourself as an Israeli with Western values, but actually in an Eastern neighborhood. Yeah. Because that is here the Middle East, and the Middle East is a jungle. And in a jungle like in a jungle, this is here the survival of the fittest. And if my Jewish country wouldn't shield me in all of its Jewish might, then my Jewish country would cease to exist, and I am inside of it. And when it comes to the media, and especially the Arab media, is one big dark realm, no less. It is no less than jousting arena, and I've decided that I've had enough of being vilified for 30 years, 40 years on end, where we're always being depicted as the baby killers and all those, all those harsh
libels,
terminology and those blood libels, which pretty much are the direct continuation of what we were accused of, like maybe 1,000 years ago.
Drinking Christian children's blood. And
I'll be left aside for the moment the self-hating Jews, where we only recently heard some statements by Israeli politicians, but never mind this one for the moment. Let's focus about the Jew haters worldwide. Another tagline of mine is to delegitimize the delegitimizers. I obviously think, I honestly believe, if we keep on spending our time and wasting our time showing out ourselves as humane, as moral, it simply never impresses anybody. I can remember an example in, say, 2008 or 10 or something like that, where an Israeli tank was accidentally killing an entire Palestinian family. Something like, maybe that was a real tragedy. I mean, like maybe 10 or 8 family members were killed. And I can remember that one of the spokeswomen, she came out to the BBC and said this: Israel is deeply apologizing. And that was pretty much her narrative. And what I thought will be and will follow, that actually did. The host from the studio in London, he was intrigued by that, and he was pushing even more aggressively. It is just us, very foolishly, we believe, if only show how moral we are. We are sincere, we are humane. We can say, we admit we were wrong. We foolishly believe the bad guys will appreciate us and leave us off. But in fact, it is actually the other way around. It's in fact, we confess as guilty as charged. And what happened next is what I thought will. And the host from the London studio actually was even pushing and nagging this Israeli spokeswoman even harder. And that's why I came out with what I'm saying, to delegitimize the delegitimizers. The BBC will ever be the BBC, and ever will, has always been, will always be the anti-Israel, anti-Semitic even, would I say. And when I say anti-Semitic, I just want to stress this one. I don't necessarily believe should we pick that easily the anti-Semite card just like that. I think it backfires at Israel's case. I think it maybe even shows some cowardice in a way. I think we should start first with the anti-Israel card, and only whenever necessary should we pick the anti-Semite card. I mean, only should we, but saying that, I still believe that we should call the spade it actually is. The BBC is not only anti-Israel, the BBC is anti-Semitic through and through. It creates domestic turmoils even inside the BBC audience. Even them, even the ordinary Englishmen, they've had enough of the BBC.
So you're saying, like, when you think of Al Arabiya or you think of Al Jazeera, and you think, well, these probably would be fake news because they're propaganda pieces which are for, like, Qatar pushes a propaganda, Hamas pushes a propaganda, even making the hostages, our brothers and sisters, making them read these scripts which are anti-Israel and all that. So what I find so phenomenal and so fascinating is that you're talking about not just propaganda stations, but you're talking about Western, even CNN, even BBC, even potentially other Western media outlets.
Absolutely. I've always said that, and I always will. We're facing a double-headed monster, the Islamo-progressive monster. I mean, that's my description.
Right. Would you say that there is, and you do these debates with these thought leaders in Arabic, with academic level Arabic on their show, and you show the facts to them in their living room.
Especially,
wow, that is pretty brave.
Absolutely, and I'll tell you even more. the Arab propaganda outlets, not necessarily you picked Al Arabiya and Al Jazeera. In fact, the two of them are hostile to each other because Al Arabiya is Saudi Arabia and Saudi Arabia is anti-Qatar.
I see.
Yeah. So Al Arabiya isn't pro-Israel, but it is anti-Hamas.
Okay.
Al Jazeera, on the other hand, is Hamas.
So when you're in Al Arabiya or Al Jazeera or some of the Arabic media, which can be very not friendly to someone like you, a Jewish Israeli, and you're speaking in their living room in Arabic and you're challenging their propaganda, their thought leaders, how do you manage that, and what methods do you use to succeed in that, in speaking truth?
Because the Arab media is extremely virulent and hostile arena, just like in a jousting arena, just like in a wrestling arena, no less, precisely. Sometimes it's the host and another guest. Sometimes even I had the chances to confront 5 different guests in a panel and a host, and me, I'm all alone. So I have what I call my secret weapon.
Oh, okay.
And I would like to share it, if you don't mind, to our viewers.
Please do, yes.
Since we human beings are more visual than textual.
We are.
You're calling us baby killers? Look at yourselves. Look at you. You are yourselves baby killers. What a culture on the face of the earth ever teaches 5 months kids and even 5-year-old kids to become murderers like here? You have the nerve to call that we don't want peace? Check out here. Here an Israeli athlete is showing his hand out to reaching out, and an Egyptian one, backed by the entire Arab nation, he's the one who is refusing. You have the nerve to accuse us that we don't want peace. And
double standards. You're showing double standards.
What a culture on the face of the earth. You can see the parents literally
my message to every mother is to sacrifice her child for Palestine.
Encourage the children to get killed. Even animals, they have love, they have emotions for their cuddles.
Right.
What I'm doing here, and that is just like the tip of the iceberg here, like I got an entire library here that I just was making before each and every show that I go live on, that I go on air, sorry. I'm preparing with some of those screenshots.
And you have to be very Middle Eastern, and everyone's yelling, and you're like, shoya, shoya!
Not necessarily yelling, because even the Arab media keeps some order.
Right.
But yeah, many times I must interrupt, and I myself am interrupted just as well.
Right.
As I mentioned, it is a wrestling arena in the Arab media, but the main point here, in what I regard with all due humility, my secret weapon is just basically to shake the Arab hosts and guests out of balance.
Right.
Because I used to describe it this way. Since I was a kid, I loved so much the good old show, the Transformers, those robots.
Optimus Prime.
Exactly. And I'm not a transformer, and I cannot transform into a TV media station.
Yes.
So the best that I can come up with is to basically print out some screenshots.
Yes.
And to turn myself into some sort of a mini screenshot. Here's a proof. Exactly.
Yeah.
That we're the owners of the land here.
Hebrew in the very stones, a menorah in the very ancient inscriptions, Star of David in the ancient inscriptions.
A very good
Israel.
proof. We are the owners of the land. We are no occupiers and no nothing.
Yes.
I even go as much as even showing them screenshots from their own Quran. Here, none of the viewers will understand.
Okay.
But what you see here highlighted in yellow are the terms the Israelites, meaning the Israelites are even mentioned in your Quran, where the word Palestine never exists for once, not even the word Al-Quds or Jerusalem.
Right. Bani Israel.
Believe me, Bani Israel.
Bani Israel.
That pisses them off. I can feel that. I can sense that. They see that and they just ignore it because they don't have anything basically to push back against those screenshots. I mean, I don't want to, God forbid, to brag or anything like that. But what I'm suggesting here is, in order to be the better version of myself in the Arab media, in the Arab hostile environment, one of my best tactics is basically to show up those visuals.
What I've noticed in Arabic media and in maybe even in other places, when people don't have an answer to facts that are presented, it just becomes a character assassination or a defamation of who you are, or just you look stupid, or I don't know, things that are just not relating to what you've presented and just cursing you. Have you ever encountered being cursed out or being
Every day.
Every day.
Every day.
How do you handle?
Not necessarily. Well, first off, it's not new that whenever people are unable to address the message, they turn into the messenger. But not only in the media, in the television arena, in Twitter or X, for instance, where like 90% of my followers are Arabs. I mean, I literally devoted my Twitter account into the Arabs and Arabic.
Amazing.
Yeah. The Arabs are the best in cursing, and they love specifically to curse your mother.
Yes.
So
and certain things about her, I know.
Kusamak.
Yeah.
Sorry for the wording.
Well,
that's.
we don't have to say what it is, but what I noticed is that their cursings are so deep. Like, for example, if someone says, "F you" or something like this, it's not very deep. It's kind of
it's their
kind of
standards.
something that. But whereas if you say, "Accursed be your father's religion," that word, and your father's name be accursed from the earth, and these kind of things. That's very deep. Very familiar. It's tribal.
Because you touch a very sensitive nerve.
Yeah.
Whenever you're a truth speaker, sorry, I'll put it this way. Whenever they're cursing your mother, your father, that's where you hit the nail.
Yes, because that's the tribal family is everything. You do everything for your family's honor.
Absolutely. We should never forget the Arab society, and that's pretty much relating to what I was saying in the beginning of my words, that even prior to being on the media, just in Rome behave Roman, in the Middle East behave Middle Eastern, it is also understanding the Arab culture, which is very clan-like culture, a tribal culture.
Yes.
And I was interviewed once in another channel, and the host was asking me, like, what is your message for Americans?
Yeah.
And I was just saying what I will say once more, because I can never highlight this enough. Dear Americans, dear Westerners,
that's exactly what I want
to do yourself a very good favor. Stop looking at the Middle East through Western prism and Western perspective. It is racist in a way, because it's like, who are those supremacists from the West who will impose their concepts on us, the Arabs, the dwellers of this land for time immemorial? That's first of all. But on top of that, it also backfires at us. Because if we can't understand the language, the concepts, the terminology, the entire mindset of whomever we're engaging with, we're literally shooting at our own feet.
Right.
We're not advancing ourselves, we're not promoting ourselves, we're only creating havoc. And it couldn't be any better highlighted than this foolish, idiotic two-state solution. First off, I got some very bad news for you. The Arabs themselves, in their own Arab platforms, they are ridiculing us, that they are able to con us and trick us by saying those Jews think we're ever going to mean to two states for two people. Well, we sure mean two-state solution, but in our way, which is Palestine, a 100% Arab state, and the Jewish state, whatever remains of the Jewish state or the Israeli state, this will be divided into two peoples, the Jews and the Arabs, inside of what's left of Israel. And that is just the norm and the mainstream concept within Palestinian circles. And I will also highlight that because the Arab society is very tribal, so I'm afraid to say that those Oslo Accords and the two-state solution is just, what the hell were people thinking to themselves without, it is so much the ABC. Before you are, engaging with somebody else from different culture, why wouldn't you do yourself a favor by doing the very basic homework, understanding the very minimum how his culture looks like?
Have you heard of the 100-Year War of China, or you've heard of when you have propaganda like Joseph Goebbels of Nazi propaganda? They wouldn't just go and right away attack. First is messing with people's minds, trying to, and they say maybe we never need to fire a bullet. The Chinese way, they say maybe in 100 years we'll
and the
we'll
communists
win.
just as well
The
in
same
America.
thing. Yeah, and so they might not even need to shoot a single bullet. Would you say the Palestinian cause or the Palestinian flag is beyond Gaza or Judea and Samaria? It's really more of a jihadist global move to do just that, to destabilize Western democracies?
In the strategic level, the answer is absolutely so. We got to keep in mind that the Middle East conflict has nothing to do with geography, with nothing to do with geographical borders. Had only we redraw the borders instead of this way into that way,
then everyone's happy. No
exactly.
Way. No way.
The Middle East conflict is all about religion mixed with culture. It is that simple. And whenever you're messing with God, then it is a debate where you can never really debate on, where you can never really overwhelm and overpower at that front, if you use your own Western means.
Yeah, one thing is, the American dream is just, it's something that Americans have where they say, I want to be rich, I want to have my own life. And as we wrap up, that can be put on all the West, and even England, even
in a way.
Norway. And so they say, I won't hurt you unless you're hurting me. So that is pushed onto us here in Israel. You must have been hurting the Gazans, you must have been hurting the Arabs in Judea and Samaria so badly that they would massacre you. It's the only way that makes sense. Why would they just up and massacre you? Well, wait, you were supplying jobs, you were supplying water, food, electricity, you were taking care of them. Egypt wasn't, who ran it, since 1967, till 1967. And then you have this thought, which is like projected. It's a projection of how they think, but their goal isn't American dream. Their goal is jihadist dream. It's a different goal.
Absolutely.
And they think they must have American dream, and that's why they're attacking, because their American dream was messed with.
But they have jihadist dream. But you know something, Chaim? I don't need Winston Churchill's good old phrase, who once wisely saying, all it takes for the evil to prevail is for the good to do nothing. I think we can come up with this concept even by ourselves. And so I don't necessarily blame the Palestinians. They do just what they want to do. They want the land, all of it, to themselves. It is for them considered as a waqf land, meaning Islamic, religious Islamic land. I blame ourselves, and I would wish to share with you here a very negative experience that I had with the Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Well, I was trying basically even to help the officials in Israel, and basically to contribute my efforts into the Hasbara efforts by enrolling myself into, formally working with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I was speaking with one of their officials. I was just amazed and shocked and appalled by what he told me over the phone. I couldn't argue with him because I still needed him.
Yes.
But he said, well, I actually suggested to him, should we maybe attack the attackers, or to vilify the journalists where they possess the influence on the masses? And he said, no. You should realize that the viewer back home, he is actually interested in hearing the journalists' questions more than the interviewee's answers. And I was just grabbing my hand. What?
It's because he knows what they want, what the audience is interested in, not the truth.
That's
but
what
the
he
audience
thought, and he even pushed further by saying,
hot topics they're called.
By saying, believe me, I know what I'm saying. I'm 25 years in the business. I know how to do Hasbara. What?
Yeah.
Israel's Hasbara is in such good condition?
Have you heard this? If it bleeds, it reads. If it's blood and murder, that's what goes well, sells newspapers, which makes money. Whatever, news. You don't have newspapers.
But we don't have the luxury. Here in Israel, we don't have the luxury. Look, let's be very honest. We cannot really persuade humanity, let alone with we are really outnumbered by 1.5 billion Muslims. But on the other side of it, I wouldn't agree, should we actually give up just like that? I actually believe that wins for Israel, or triumphs for Israel's Hasbara, could be determined per show, and another.
Okay.
Because in the end of the day, the ordinary person is just exposed to a show. on media, on social media, and so forth. And whenever whenever the main line coming out of formal Israel, of the official Ministry of Foreign Affairs, let's just lick. Let's just be the good guys, or be how should I describe that? Like, shall we not be aggressive enough to our media because we need them, because we're dependent on them? This is such a progressive, popularity, an old-time progressive thought of thinking. I'm trying basically to offer an out-of-the-box sort of thinking by, as I was describing that, to delegitimize the delegitimizers, because in the end of the day, journalists are the #1 source of spreading the poison against Israel.
There's very few people.
Not necessarily the leaders, such as Emmanuel Macron, or our diplomats. They can work their minds off with their own counterparts. We should be interested in delivering good hasbara to the ordinary people, and what is blocking us is the journalists and the media, because they are driven by their own agenda, and that's why they're never interested with facts. They are just not, their reason is not something they're driven by or motivated from, because all they're interested is, they have their own agenda. By hook or by crook, they will push forward their own agenda.
Which they could be paid by Qatar to do that or whatever. But as we end and as we wrap up, I wanted to just say there's very few people in this world that would call fake news, and that would actually kick Al Jazeera out, which I even thought, I was like, man, that is very harsh to say Al Jazeera leave. It looks very bad for Israel. But knowing what we know, what has been said
That's because Israel was not branding this move properly.
Right, but I know the reason. If you're having full-on lies spread, that is part of war. That is helping the masses to be deceived, which is helping Hamas to push their agenda. That's not good. That's not right. And so I'm glad that Israel removed Al Jazeera, although it looks bad for Israel. But what would you say, as we wrap up and as we end, to another word just to those young ambassadors, young people who are taking their first steps in this very harsh environment? It's like stepping on the surface of the sun. It's hot to talk about Israel, to stand for Israel. What tips can you give so they'll be successful?
I think, ladies and gentlemen, my best advice for you is just to stand up for your principles. I mean, don't cave in of all these storms coming out for us. We have been persecuted for 3,000 years. This phenomenon, this anti-Israel, anti-Jewish, surge against us isn't necessarily new. It is just one more part, one more section in the entire continuum of Jewish history. And I would rather suggest we can now benefit the goods that technology has offered us. Go up to live stream, go to the social media, use your posts, acquire followers. Everybody can now be a journalist. Don't give up this very incredible gift we were granted, which is called, what I call a gift, the social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and so forth. Use that for our advantage. Advance the pro-Israel line, and when you do it, I think focus less how victims we are, how beautiful we are. Enough, really enough. We don't need those. We don't need approvals by anybody. I think should we step up and kick into gear and start being more aggressive. That is just my approach, and I'll be very humble with you about that. What I call to delegitimize the delegitimizers. I honestly believe we haven't tried that enough, but hey, everybody in his own style.
Yeah.
Stand up for your principles. Stand up for the Jewish people, for Israel. That's pretty much the bottom line.
Yeah, I have a 7-day challenge that I came up with where one of the days is face the lie head on with the truth. Don't just, these are kind of like deflecting, like, oh, but we are good, but we have been persecuted, we've been through the Holocaust. No, there's a lie, hit it head on with the truth. And hey, check out the 7-day challenge. Thank you so much for your time. I really am impressed that you're still strong. We'll be praying for God's blessing on your work as you go to those studios in Arabic, and your protection too. I know that can also be an issue. Thank you for spending your time, and Share this, like this, comment, subscribe, be part of the movement. Thank you for tuning into yet another episode of the Real Israel podcast with me, Chaim Mailspin, where truth shines, dispelling the darkness. And if you found value in today's episode, please like it, comment, we want to hear from you, and subscribe. Click that notification bell and share it. Join the conversation and be a truth speaker for Israel.